Hello, everyone, and welcome to our virtual webinar as part of our Computer Science Education Week. We are thrilled to have you with us today to explore how innovative technology like Glowforge laser printer is transforming computer science education. I'm Dawn, a former educator and technology coach and current Glowforge EDU account manager. I'm your host for this session, and my co-host is fellow account manager Kyla. Kyla, would you like to briefly introduce yourself?
Thank you, Dawn. Hi, everybody. My name is Kyla. I'm the Education Account Manager for the Western US. My background is actually primarily in fine art and design, but I have been with the Glowforge education team for about 4 years now. So I've gotten to experience working with all sorts of educators, and it's really fueled my passion for introducing a culture of making and creative learning to educators and students. Just one quick note, we have several of our fellow EDU experts in the chat to help. So they're going to answer any questions that you put in the chat, but they also may pose a couple discussion questions. We'd love if you would respond and participate. We really want this to be as interactive as possible. So thank you so much, and we'll have Dawn sort of take it away.
Thank you, Kyla. So Brett will be our main point of contact in the chat. Try to keep us going. He may also unmute and stop us to maybe share a comment that might or question out of the chat. But we are fortunate to have with us 3 fantastic educators who have successfully integrated Glowforge into their computer science curriculum. I have actually got to know these 3 very well through our ambassador program, and even did a school visit with Bobby, Starling, and Pasco. So I'm so excited to hear from them and them share to you all how Glowforge can be integrated into the computer science curriculum. They will share their insights, experiences, and the exciting possibilities of this technology for hands-on learning. So without further ado, let's start by having each of our panelists introduce themselves. Please share a bit about your background, your current teaching role and location, your experience with integrating the Glowforge into your curriculum. And if we could start with Bobby, we'll have you begin.
All right. Hi, everybody. Happy Computer Science Education Week. My current role is senior supervisor for Pasco County Schools, and I oversee computer science K12, the development of all of the curriculum, and then the teacher support. And then I also oversee all of our STEM programs. So for Glowforge for us, started out with 1 machine and have been growing and growing and growing from there. So we have Glowforge included in our computer science curriculum in K5, the elementary curriculum, and then in 6-8 in some of our course codes, and in one of our high school courses, computer science principles.
Thank you, Bobby. If I can remember, you all have probably 60 plus printers in the school district now.
We do. We have 60 plus out at school sites, and now I've been fortunate enough to have some of them at the district office as well. So when teachers come over for trainings and things, we have lots of machines to use there too. So we've got 5 at our district complex, and then about 62, I think, out in school sites right now.
It's amazing technology. If you are in Florida, Bobby might be one you want to pick her brain during Q&A or post to see how she actually funded from 1 to 60. 60 plus, I should say. But thank you, Bobby. We'll circle back, but going with John now. John, how could you introduce yourself and how you integrate technology and maybe your story with Glowforge, how you got started?
Sure. So I'm John Jasinski. I teach engineering and physics and robotics and whatever else they ask me to in Medway High School in Medway, Massachusetts. Unfortunately, we only have the 1 Glowforge, but we'll work on more. We started with Glowforge, I want to say about 4 or 5 years ago, wrote a grant and got support through that grant, and just try to figure out, okay, every time I feel like, okay, what can I do with this? How can I incorporate it into this class or to this class? And it kind of worked its way in. And every time I had some students working on something, other students come up and be like, how do they do that? Like, can I work with this? I'm like, yes, you can. So it sells itself, which is great. Kids get really excited about using it. So I've used it in robotics. I've used it in my engineering classes. We've dabbled in it with my physics classes as well. And I've worked with some of the art teachers in our building to work on some artistic applications for it as well. So it's been a lot of fun to to utilize and play with as a teacher and robotics advisor.
Thank you, John. Actually, really thoroughly enjoyed your robots and then the hand movement. So I have a picture of that. That is in our December newsletter, everyone, if you want to take a look at that. But I do have a picture on a slide we can share for a visual for that one.
Great.
Thank you. Patrick, welcome.
Hello. Thank you. Good to see everybody here for CSed Week and hanging out with Glowforge and Glowforge EDU peeps. I'm Patrick from Austin, Texas, and currently I just started back in August at UT teaching a class called Scientific Innovation and Design, which has been really fun. It's an undergraduate class. It's like 50 students typically. Most haven't done anything with digital fabrication or programming or electronics, so it's really fun to get started in that. Before UT, I've been in K12 makerspaces at a couple different schools, and then also a public makerspace for adults, fabrication lab. And in all three of these areas, in K12, in community spaces, and at the at UT, the Glowforge has been a really great and essential part of our ecosystem. It's such a wonderful machine to get started on, a very low barrier to entry, and then you can do amazing things with it as you progress. So it kind of grows with your skill level, which is really an ideal piece of equipment and software to have.
Thank you for sharing. I think between you, Patrick, explaining that, and then Bobby and John, everybody hits the gamut from kindergarten all the way up to higher ed, and then into the business world with one machine. The same machine you can learn on so basic and entry, as Patrick said, or you can make it as complex. And I think that for me is what the coolest part is, because everybody shares the same ecosystem and vision and what you can do with that. So if you have questions about the machines or the different machines that we provide, please definitely in chat, ask us, and we'll try to answer those towards the end. So today's objectives is to learn from these three educators on the impact of their Glowforge in computer science curriculum, and also inspire new ideas. So many of you might be users, teachers that already have a Glowforge, and we want to inspire how to make computer science tangible. And if you don't have a Glowforge yet and you're looking, we hope to answer your questions now, or we can have one-to-one meetings after this session. First, I do always like to ask this question, whether it's in a small group setting like this or one-to-one, but what is your top goal in computer science education? And typically it's a poll, and you can answer in chat if you would like to answer. But A, inspire creativity and innovation. B, enhance problem-solving skills. Or C, enable students to create tangible projects. What happens typically is I force everybody to choose one of these things. And then there becomes a discussion. And the discussion is all three. So one might be your top priority, but B might be somebody else's top priority. And then how can this machine, the Glowforge laser printer, hit all the needs in all the classroom? So all the things can be provided with Glowforge and the curriculum. And we hope you can see that by the shares that our educators are going to give us tonight. So, Bobby, with the first question, in what ways do technologies like Glowforge reshape the way computer science education is delivered, especially in a hands-on learning environment?
So I think one of the ways I think it enhances it the most dramatically is it allows for really quick, rapid prototyping. So kids can think about a concept of computer science or theoretically what it looks like, and then they can apply that and do rapid prototyping, and then kind of problem solve and critically think about what they've created, make it better, and then have a finished, tangible, hands-on product at the end. So they see their designs kind of come to life. So they do that computer-aided design part in the designing, and then they actually get into that computer-aided manufacturing to have that physical product at the end. And it allows for such rapid prototyping that actually this week I did some, for Computer Science Education Week, I did some live broadcasting on site at schools, and had classrooms all across our district joining in. And our middle school was the largest, but I was at one middle school, Rushi Middle School, we had 6,742 students on teams all working on the same design project using Glowforge. So it was super exciting. And because they can make something so quickly and then end up with a physical product, the engagement was just, just out of the world for all those kids. So they were super excited. So that was a really cool thing to see. We also did a project for high school and elementary school, but the only real piece of equipment that we have in the computer science curriculum that can do something that is that quickly and that has the floor and the ceiling to meet the needs of kindergarten through our high school students at How to Be Glowforge.
Well, thank you for sharing. For a middle school project, what was the outcome that they printed, or was it a design challenge and everybody prototyped the same, different things? The outcomes were different?
So the only thing that was different was whatever they decided to customize. But so for our middle school project, they designed a LED light up, I guess it's a sign or a nightlight kind of a thing. So they actually designed an inkscape, and we did 3 shapes. So they did a square, and then a circle to make the domed top, and then a small rectangle at the bottom that they had to measure the 70 millimeters to fit into the base of that. And then they, picked whatever image they wanted, and they converted up the file types, which is one of our computer science standards, from either JPEG, PNG to the scalable vector graphic file. They learned about that and then sent it on over to the Glowforge to add some text or their name, and then they got to have their finished bases when they were finished. So they were very excited.
Yeah, the nightlights are a really cool take-home product, and the parents can even see what they're making and bring home something that they can keep, like a keepsake.
Yeah,
very cool.
And then our high school kids, just to level up, they used the L wire for their signs and the Chicago screw. So theirs were in different layers, and they had that L wire to make their custom neon signs, and they were super excited too.
Oh, that was the fun one. That's the one where you're weaving through.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, we would love to see those and share those outcomes as well, and hopefully that inspires some teachers to create as well. All right, question 2, John, what training or resources have you found helpful in learning to incorporate the Glowforge into your curriculum effectively? Oh, I think you're muted, John. Sorry.
Thank you. I've used a lot of the tutorials that you find on Glowforge, honestly, from a lot of users that make, and as soon as students come up to me, he's like, how do I know? How do I figure out how to? I'm like, start that question in a search bar. So it's one thing for me to teach them, but I've used a lot of resources from the community of people, tweaking things for how did you do this for a draft board? How did you adjust these settings for this? And the saving grace is the person who made the spreadsheet of here's all of my materials and all of the settings for cutting and scoring. And I'm like, oh, I love spreadsheets. And things like that has been super helpful. And just kind of digging around in the examples on the sites and stuff like that to get up and running. For students, I've noticed I needed to kind of have I'd simplify the one pager for them, if it's, depending on how much time you're running through, of like, okay, this is what it means to cut, what it means to score, what it means to engrave, and think of the thing you want to make in layers. But first, think of the thing you want to make, because really this is a tool and we'll figure out how to use the tool. So I try to get them thinking in that way and try to start with tools that they're already familiar with. Like if they're familiar with Google Slides or PowerPoint, design in there. Like if we don't have access to Inkscape or vector.com or things like that, design in a familiar platform, just whatever you can manipulate and pull things in. And then we'll learn how to get from one to the other and to use the tool. So that's been really helpful to kind of tackle things that way.
Thank you, John. I'm going to pose the same question to Patrick. Patrick, what training resources have you found helpful?
So to build on what John said, an additional source that I love for getting started, because a lot of people, a lot of students, K12 to higher ed, there's like similar kind of experience levels, which is interesting. So a lot of people are coming in pretty brand new to this, and it says still just like a brand new, and that's why I love education, is because it's brand new for so many people, so it never gets old. And one of the, I think, a great pairing with Glowforge is Cuttle, CUTTLE.xyz. There's some great tutorials. There's Federico is one of the people there, and has some really great tutorials. I don't know if they're still, I think they're all on YouTube. But one of them was from a picture book with these like great simple drawings, and they would recreate these drawings in Glowforge and then cut them out. So it's a great literacy integration with the storybook, good for all ages, and you're creating something from scratch, and you go from point A all the way across, and at the end you have a really neat thing. It's free for like 3 projects. You would have to pay if you want more features, but there's EDU pricing too, and I think it's such a lovely place to start because it's just it's so engaging. So that's a go-to. We get a lot of value also from things like Inkscape, which is free and open source. And so a lot of students appreciate that because they can customize outside of the makerspace once they learn some of the basics, and they come into the makerspace and they can do some prints with that.
Very good.
It's great having the panel because I've been furiously taking notes on what they're saying because like there's so many good ideas. So
there is. And Cuddle, I actually watched a YouTube. Now I'm going to go find the storybook one because I was really wanting to try the inlay. And they had a really simple one for earrings. And I thought that was really cool. But you guys do way amazing things with Inkscape. And it really, I'm a Glowforge baby. I say I'm a Glowforge baby. I love the software. I love the materials. But once you learn it, you can upscale yourself in different programs. All right, next question.
Yeah, so I'm going to jump in here and I am going to ask John, especially because he already kind of mentioned a little bit of the collaboration and cross-curricular stuff that you've tackled. So can you share some examples of the interdisciplinary projects where you use the Glowforge to merge computer science with things like art, engineering, design? We'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, honestly, one of the first uses was ambitious at first, and I didn't intend it to be, but it was a student's idea, so they were interested in doing this. But it was an intro to robotics class, which is supposed to be introductory, but they're like, what if I could make a giraffe? Okay. How do you imagine doing that? We're like, well, I've seen this thing where like the legs walk and that kind of thing. I'm like, okay, all right. And we're using Legos to do this at the time, Lego Mindstorms. He's like, but we just got a laser cutter, right? I'm like, yeah. So like, could I cut the legs out of the pieces that we need? That's a great idea. So I wish I could claim that I had the idea originally, but it was them seeing that we had the tool going, what if we could XYZ? So they found some examples of kind of those legs and they kind of shaped them out and drew the shapes kind of in a rough dimensions. And Bobby was talking about earlier, this is the benefit of rapid prototyping, because the first 1, 2, 3 versions of this weren't so hot, didn't fit. They didn't think the holes were large enough to get through or connect to this. But that was the idea. They could go back, edit it, and have 2, 3, 4 iterations within the same class period. And that made a huge difference. And once they got rolling, I just kind of got out of their way and made sure they can log on and knew how to get to it and kind of leverage their interest in this, and they were running with it so that they had a robot with kind of a 4-bar mechanism and legs that were moving back and forth, because they were able to make a quick version of, okay, all of these connective pieces there. So that was kind of in the first years that we had this, students dug into it. So I kept that project around, stuck it on a shelf so kids can see things and get inspired by stuff. And probably about 2 years later, I had another student that wanted to make a robotic hand, really interested in robotics. And then for his advanced robotics piece, he wanted a glove that as he moved his hands, the robotic hand would also move. That was the idea. So he 3D printed the robotic hand itself and added the little servos that would control it, and realized that he needed some way for the glove to actually translate that motion. And we had little sensors that would do it, but he needed a piece to connect the finger to the actual dial on the sensor. So he kind of figured out the dimensions and drew it out. And he was using Fusion 360 at the time, so he drew it out in there because he was familiar with that. And we laser cut, basically arched connective pieces for the fingers so his glove could make his robotic hand move. And again, the Glowforge itself was a force multiplier for that iterative design process, because you can have an idea, draw it up real quick, and whatever platform is easiest to you, because you just need the vector image in the end. And they got running with that. So we've had a lot of robotics uses there. I also do a robotics team for Vex Robotics, and you're allowed certain pieces of custom pieces that you can add to that. So we've been kind of designing and using the Glowforge to cut those as well. But I've used it in engineering when students have ideas and want to lay something out, or they find an idea that they want to, hey, can we print this or cut this and then build off of, build off X, Y, and Z, and it's worked out really well. I had one student who got really excited about it, and as her senior year gift, she was given 2 large pieces of leather, and she wanted to make her own handbag out of it. And she's like, can the Glowforge do that? I don't know, but we're going to find out. So she was really excited, and she got into the artistic side of things, but both the mechanical side of laying out the patterns, figuring out all the pieces she need, scaling it to fit, in an 11 by 19 space. And she worked through all of the design aspects, all of the artistic pieces she wanted on that. And we tested out the settings, and she worked through it and figured out how to get this going. And the nice part is, she was able to do that. It wasn't okay, Mr. J, when you figure that out, let me know. It's like the Glowforge is easy enough to use for them that she was empowered to work through the ins and outs and how the settings, okay, this is too long, this is too hot, this is too many passes if we do this. It was a good playground for trying to find the best settings for this type of leather that she had, and we were able to cut that. So it's really proven super useful in a lot of different cases.
Well, thank you. We're going to show some of the samples from each of your projects towards after the questions. But I worked with leather for the first time this week. That was cutting. And I made 110 bookmarks out of leather, personalized, and my house was lovely smell of leather. And, but it was really cool to see something, take a sheet of leather, and now they're customized into the shape that I wanted it to be, and it had somebody's name and logo on it. So even your student knowing the leather and trying to figure out the settings, it's awesome to go through those iterations. And for me, Glowforge, I love that we have a little sticker and it does the settings for me. So you could go either way on that one. So.
Yeah, I love that too, because as I mentioned at the beginning, I went to art school, and I always thought like, oh, tech, like that's such a challenging thing. But the thing that I always see across the board with the Glowforge is that problem solving part, So no matter what you're making, you really get to like explore and do multiple versions of things super easily, and find those answers to the problems that come while you're trying to create something, no matter what it is. So thank you so much. And now we're going to go over to Bobby. And the other question I have is, how can tools like the Glowforge help in making computer science more accessible and appealing to a diverse range of students? So, we have, underrepresented communities, or we have people that feel like me, that they're not a tech person. How do you use the Glowforge to really get those people engaged?
So I am definitely super passionate that computer science is for all, everybody, and all means all. And I think that a lot of times, as adults, teachers, educators, parents, I think that when they hear computer science, they think that it means someone is in front of a screen coding or programming. And so the co-panelists have already talked about some of the amazing things that you can do with Glowforge, but I think that the ability to make things personalized, customized, and the integration of art and design really bring in a more diverse group of kids. They start to get excited about the possibilities of their ideas and be able to see them come to life. So I think it really engages them. And someone else already talked about too, the low ceiling is as simple as putting something that is a piece of art that was hand drawn under the camera for the trace feature, and being able to have that created right away. Or if you're designing something intricate with the million of tools that are in Inkscape that I've only figured out about half of so far, there's that really huge range. And when that survey came up that Don put up about choosing the A, B, or C, for me, it was about the innovation and creativity, because I think if kids are creative or curious about things and then they can innovate, then all of those other things come. So they're going to do all the problem solving, like John mentioned, when she wanted to make her handbag. She had to figure all these things out because she really had a felt need and a buy into that. So it's something that's authentic to them and really inspires everybody, whether it's designing, like we have done the light up Nike Jordan shoe with the L wire, or a custom leather bag for a senior project. All of those things are possible through the Glowforge. And then of course, since it's, you've got all parts of tactile, visual, all those things are there too. And the ability to design on paper or cardboard, make that prototyping really quick and inexpensive too. So before you even get to the Glowforge materials or that leather, if you do it in cardboard first, you can quickly see if it fits together. So all those Amazon boxes that are delivered to schools every day, I save them all, cut them up, send them out to teachers. But yeah, so it's just really cool.
Cardboard, we didn't mention that initially, but cardboard is my favorite.
My colleagues are well trained
yes,
to like,
yeah.
oh, Mr. J, I got a really good box for you. I'm like, yes, thank you.
Yes, yes.
You don't even need the fancy ones because the Amazon ones are perfect. They slice through really quick. Save those Amazon boxes so the machine is sustainable in the future. You don't have to always buy filament like a typical 3D printer or use Glowforge material. You just iterate on cardboard. Bobby also wears her designs out in public. If you see her glasses match her jacket, those are actually made. She has different colors that match her different outfits every day. So I love it. I have asked her, she should send in the design or the print or the lesson plan to Glowforge and get that in the catalog because they're amazing. She has little droplets that magnetic to her. And that was like the second day I saw her, I was like, well, today it's purple. And yesterday was pink. And now I've seen her, it's in red. So really cool that the students see that she uses the Glowforge for herself as well. All right, John. I left that on 4. So 5, how do you envision technologies like Glowforge impacting the future of computer science education? And what new possibilities do they open up? Laser and Glowforge itself has only been on the market and in classrooms the last 6-7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Where do we go from here, and what do you see in the future?
Yeah, it really lowers the barrier for prototyping, for that iterative design that we keep talking about, but that becomes much more accessible and easy to incorporate in more classrooms. You may have it's natural to try to apply these things to an engineering classroom because they go, it's an engineering, we're designing stuff, we're prototyping. Robotics, the same thing, we're designing stuff, we're prototyping, and that's kind of the first easy win. It's like, yeah, okay, but I'm getting more students who see that in my classroom and go, hey, I have this history project where we're designing this, modern propaganda because they're studying, what that was like back then. I'm like, can I laser cut parts of this and do this stuff? I'm like, yeah, like that is a really cool project. So as this becomes more commonplace and students see it as like, hey, this is just another tool you can use. Now they kind of realize they can think through more of what's possible in other arenas. So when you have more curriculum going using project-based learning and having a more tactile things that you want to design, this is yet another tool. And it's such a versatile, easy to use tool in your toolbox to have available. I think that's going to be really interesting as you open up the door to other projects in other curriculums and curricula to see where they go with it. But it's going to be second nature. So now it's like, oh yeah, well, we could laser cut that, it becomes the printer in my room. Now I'm scrambling trying to find a color printer because those don't exist anymore. I have a 3D printer, I have a laser cutter, I'm still trying to find a color printer, but those are few and farther between. But now that this is becoming more easily accessible, I think you'll see more teachers taking advantage of this, more students kind of realizing and thinking through, hey, this is a small example, a subset of like what manufacturing and industry will look like. Here's a piece of kind of behind the scenes on how things are made. And when you kind of realize that, they can help them think through, well, like, could you make like custom ornaments and like sell them on Etsy? I'm like, how do you think they make the custom things that are on Etsy? This is what they do. And that kind of like opens their eyes. I was like, wow, like that's a thing. That's a thing I could do. I could make things. I could create my own art. I could create my own stuff and do that kind of thing. And that's seeing that there makes that more realistic for them, more tangible, more achievable. This lowers that barrier, and they see. It's hard to be what you can't see. Right. So if you can see it, you're more likely to be able to do it and go down that road.
Yeah. And I think that's the same as what Bobby was saying about it's for everyone. It's for all. Like, it's not, you walk into a classroom, computer science, hopefully it's not just all males anymore. is predominantly male, but now it can link and integrate into other areas of interest and where we could put it together. So I think that's very cool too. All right, next question.
Yeah. I was also just going to say, on top of what John was saying, is it's so funny once you start using something like a Glowforge, you see laser cut stuff everywhere. It's like all of a sudden you go into a store, you go to a craft fair, like, oh my God, how do you think they did that? Maybe a laser. So it definitely, I agree, it's going to become more and more ubiquitous.
The Matrix everywhere now. It's like, oh.
Exactly. Awesome. So Patrick, I would love to know if you could share a story of a specific project where the use of the Glowforge had a significant impact on a student's learning experience in computer science. I think super specific examples are always, what we love to share because it makes it so much easier to envision for, people that are considering adding a Glowforge.
Yeah, I'd love to. I've got a couple. One is more kind of K5 zone. And another one is a pretty recent experience from our last maker project for that science class. The K5 one, and it's not my idea, but it's from a maker and author named Josh Berker. And he has a book called the Invent to Learn Guide to Fun. And he's done a couple of these. And one of them is brilliant. Laser cut templates and shapes. And so think circles, triangles, squares, that kind of a thing. And he had a template. His were hand cut. So I took a shortcut and laser cut them on the Glowforge, which made it so much easier. So I could mass produce them. But the main idea is it's computer science unplugged, which I'm a huge fan of, because I think what Bobby was saying is a lot of people think it's just kids in front of screens, and it could be without the screen and still really deep and meaningful. So the idea is using these physical things in sidewalk chalk and going outside. And so I had a lot of students that I think it came up of like, I'm not a whatever person. So like computer science can even at young grades can seem really intimidating. It seems really techie and really kind of, it's abstract by design, right? So making that connection with this is great because it's kinesthetic learning, basically. Seymour Papert, who talked a lot about computers in kids' hands, talked about bodies and tonics. Same kind of thing where what we did, and this is from Josh Berger's kind of idea, and we just kind of took it, we just blew it up kind of a little bit bigger. Sidewalk chalk outside, and then with the chalk, they would trace the shape. And what the conversation I had with the student, I was really kind of struggling with these concepts, was break it down into steps. And so basically came up with a set of instructions and like, how do we make it simpler? So talked about more like algorithmic thinking. And then how do we debug it? Like, oh, this didn't work out. So what can we do to erase it? So it's like very low stakes and highly visual because you're there with a chalk, different shapes, and you're trying different patterns. And so you're thinking of sequence, you're thinking of kind of deconstructing what you want to do into simple steps. And so the student that was really just kind of not into it at first because of the preconceivedness of it. But once you get the art design and the body involved, then it starts, it really for her helps kind of think differently about computer science and how it could be super fun. And then take that idea and then move it. And there's a program called Turtle Art. It's free. And so we went from that to turtle art, and it was a great one-to-one where now they're moving a turtle around, and those same commands they were doing with like put the chalk down, make a circle, they were doing that with block coding. And it was great to map that and to see the similarities and how that's different. So that was a great success for students that, she really wasn't into it, and then had the physical connection to it and seeing the kind of beauty of it really when you can like make neat art with it. And you have this computational thinking happening just kind of naturally. Most recently, we talked about cardboard. One of my favorite, I can't take credit for this term, but CAD as in cardboard aided design. Love it, because so we'll do things first by hand or with hand tools to practice, and then we'll go to Glowforge to quickly iterate. And one of the things I think that helps students understand how these things connect, because we pulled in some stuff. There's a great resource from Google called Teachable Machine, which is machine learning. And you can train, you can make your own training data, and then you can export it onto like a microcontroller, like a microbit, for example, which is a very great, inexpensive platform to learn about coding and electronics. And so Glowforge is a great match for that, because in the class, we talked about most technology that students are interacting with. And this is my friend Kenneth Hawthorne came up with this. and he's great. We work together. We broke it down into hardware, software, and chassis. Most inventions, most things people interact with have some combination of those elements. And so when we're working with cardboard, and then we were making enclosures for these boards like Microbit or Arduino, which is another one, students were making their own enclosure for it. So that would be the chassis part. And so it was great for them to, because a lot of things are black box. You don't know what's behind the thing. So a great part of education is taking apart the things to see what's inside, and then use that to make your own thing. And so it's really wonderful to see students have no idea what's behind like their phone or what's inside and what's in there, or just a computer, and being able to take something like their computer science, their engineering, electronics, and then put it into something that's custom made through the iterative design process. I think that's a really big change where I like Seymour Papert say, like, our students are not being, have the potential to not be programmed by the computer, but program the machine themselves. And so I think AI, things like Microbit and Glowforge, where you can create physical things with computing, I think that's the game changer.
Yeah, taking apart, putting it back together. I remember when my remote fell apart when I was younger, and I was like, well, that's cool inside. And that was like your first little microchip because you're pushing buttons. And that was my introduction to like taking things apart and try to put them back together. But you all are amazing, and sharing your stories have inspired me. I've seen everybody's heads that are on this call really share. And then I know we're recording this, so we're going to send it out to even more people who will be inspired by you three, your students, and your teaching. I do want to share some visuals from each of you. And that way the people on the call, we can kind of relate to what you've been talking about. One of these is the chassis that Patrick was talking about, but it's Bobby's project. And I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about it, Bobby. It was my favorite with the straw bees.
Yeah, so that one was a kind of a collab between Hummingbird Robotics Kit, Strawbees, and Glowforge. And the exciting part for that was that to make the cardboard robot chassis there for that beautiful pig, it was only 34 seconds. So thinking of rapid prototyping, that is like it right there. And then from really quick sketches, we were able to make all sorts of different kind of animal shapes to make them come to life that we could put around the sensor there, so that the distance sensor. So when the pig is, rolling forward and sensing there, it looks more like a pig. My pig really could use a little help, but some of the kids' designs were really cool. So that one was the robot chassis there with the little pig in it.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jackie Tan is also an ambassador. She sent this in last week, and Patrick was mentioning the chassis where you can't see the inside of an object, and hers is clear. So the body of her car is clear, and you can see there's a microbit inside. We do have lesson plans, and we have a few, and we'd love to load them up with more ideas and share. But the arcade was one of the first ones in the lesson plan, where they can actually build their own arcade and put their buttons, and then use the computer to navigate that. Recently, this one was shared. It's actually math. So this is a math art, and you have to take each of these sections that are printed flat and put them together, and you got to figure out how many you need to make it into the 3D design. And this was one, it started on an Aura, so that our diode laser, and that teacher sent it in to a contest and won, and then won the funding to buy the performance model. So she actually upgraded and now has that. So she's able to do the clear acrylics, and they're gorgeous, and they're big. She has big ones and small ones. So she shared that with us today. And then this one is Patrick's. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So one of our, we have training classes, and this has been from all the different places that I've worked, K12, public space, and the university, is kind of a safety and basic use of the machine, so they can come in, get the training, and then they can come in and basically anytime and make a thing. And one of we like to do make and takes for those trainings. So if it's 3D printing or whatever. So for Glowforge, plus the Cuttle website, they have a free keychain generator. And so that's been great as a quick design, because it has a vector cut, which is, cutting out the shape, engraving like a deeper engrave, function, and then you can do like a light score around things. And so being able to do a quick like 2-minute design that gets fabricated and they get to walk away with the thing. So the keychains on the one side is just an example of some of that they made. And then on the other side is an Arduino board, and they were mid project. So we broke down projects into these weekly design sprints. And so the idea was they had this idea of like all the different features and functions they want their thing to do, but let's focus on one thing and get that to work. And before we do the next thing, and maybe they go really deep in one thing before they iterate and add more features. And so this was early chassis. So they had their thing basically working, but they didn't know how to like make it so they can move it around and put it someplace like on the wall. So they were going through different ideas. So I think you can kind of see it's a wooden box. And so they did that really quickly. They designed it, put it out, and tested it, and they figured out that they did the dimensions incorrectly, and they did another pass.
Very good. Thank you for sharing. And then, John, this was your robot hand. Sorry, muted again, John. John, if you can hit the unmute.
Yes, the robot hands on the right, you can see the one they 3D printed and the one that the fingers that they had attached to their glove that would trigger the sensors on it. And that was a really cool project. And the one on the left was the Robo Giraffe, as they affectionately called it, with the front laser cut legs, that's one of the middle iterations that went through many forms. But it was, like I said, really great that they can quickly reprototype and adjust and print again. And I need to remember go to cardboard first until you're good, and then you can use the good stuff. But yeah, those were 2 fun projects that we had.
Thank you. And again, you can see many of these projects in our newsletters. So hopefully everyone is signed up for that. In the chat, for those of you who are here live, do we have any questions? If you wanted to unmute, we could take those live while we have the educators here with us. I know there's been some in the chat.
Don, someone had a question, Alana had a question about Toon Boom. I haven't tried that firsthand. I don't know if anyone else has tried that on here or can comment.
So you can convert any file type image into an SVG using Inkscape, which is free. So if you created something on Toon Boom and then saved it or exported and imported it into Inkscape, then you just go to, there's a tool at the top that's path, and then you choose trace bitmaps. It'll make that bitmap and then become an SVG file. So if you liked the design on Toon Boom, then you could just convert that to an SVG on Inkscape.
Thank you, Bobby.
And somebody I saw somebody mentioned Tinkercad, and that is oddly for 3D design. You can export things that are flat on it. You can export as an SVG for laser cutting, which is super handy. So that's another option as well.
I love Tinkercad.
And I think also in Thingiverse, you can do the same things. And there are things that are already actually in Thingiverse. If you can search for laser or search for like puzzle, and you can see all the things that were already flat that they build into those 3D designs. But so you can do those on your Glowforge too, and they come out great.
And someone mentioned CorelDRAW, and yes, that's my usual go-to for laser cut stuff.
For my a lot of my engineers who already took intro to engineering, they know 3D modeling and Fusion 360 really well, so that's their preferred drawing platform. So what they've started doing is, make the sketch, draw it flat, and they would extrude the edges to different heights. Because we used to go like, okay, export a DXF file and take that over to Photoshop, and then Photoshop from DXF to this. And we realized if we just extruded it so we can see all the edges, made a PDF of the drawing file from like top down, and just delete the border and delete the title block, that PDF it makes, you can not add the line weights, and that has worked really well with our Glowforge as well. So it's been a great shortcut for us.
You all are blowing my mind right now with the amount of things that you could do and the amount of software that can meet you where you are. And it could be whatever you've already learned and then come in to Glowforge and bring your creation to life.
Another real quick cool one that you can do using a 3D model first is obviously if you have that 3D model, and you export it as an SVG, like from Tinkercad, it's only going to do the layer that is touching the print bed or the bottom of that. But I did a really cool layered one of Fenway Stadium for a friend of mine for a gift. And so it was really cool to then get all of the different actual layers of that stadium and then to put it together in the Glowforge with different woods. Looks awesome. I can share a picture of that too, but that was a really, really cool thing too, to see them like the slices of those things.
You've just inspired me to take that project and just put it on the plane and then slide it down, export, slide it down, export, slide it down, export.
Yep, that's what
I know what I'm doing next week.
Yep.
Y'all should check out. It's a standalone. It's not really supported anywhere, but you can still download it. It's Slicer for Fusion.
Yes, I played with it
And
before.
so you can import an SVG, and then you can pick how you want to slice it, and then you get separate slice files. It's great. It's so much fun. It's a little weird because it's not updated frequently, but once you get the hang of just kind of how to rotate and do stuff, it makes really fun things.
I was wondering if the key term was slicing. I had another teacher ask me how to make this, and I was like, I'm not quite sure. I use the Glowforge app, and sometimes I use Canva. So I'm going to have to redirect him to this video and have him go through the slicing part of that. Well, thank you. Any last questions? We appreciate everyone's time, but thank you all for sharing your insights and your stories. It's very inspiring to hear how the Glowforge is being used to innovate and enrich computer science education. So now I'd like to just close it out and extend my gratitude to our panelists for their time and invaluable contributions today. Thank you to all the educators who joined us for this session. Your dedication in advancing computer science education is truly commendable. We hope you found this seminar insightful and inspiring. Have a great night, everyone, and enjoy the rest of Computer Science Education Week.